are my glasses? They're there. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Justice with Jax, celebrating Melissa Kaluzinski's 35th birthday today. Sorry, I am how many minutes late? No, it's still 10 o'clock. And sorry for the crappy quality. Even though I came up to my computer to be all ready for this, to be raring to go right at 10 o'clock, my laptop won't work. So I have to do today's live on my iPad, which is sucky. So you're just gonna have to bear with me, and I don't get to use my fancy camera and my fancy microphone. So hopefully y'all can hear me just fine. So my name is Jax West, and I am from Justice with Jax, as well as Stephen Avery Project and our subgroup called MAM Gossip. And today is Melissa Kaluzinski's 35th birthday. Melissa has been in prison for 13 years now, I believe. I'm really bad with numbers. For a murder she did not commit. Melissa worked at a daycare center. She was in the toddler room. And, oh, I gotta turn my fan on. I'm like, why am I so warm? Oh, I don't have my fan on. She worked in the toddler room. And so there was this 17-month-old boy, Benjamin Kingham, who was in a chair on the floor, and Melissa noticed that he was an odd color and was starting to foam from, stuff was coming from his mouth. She alerted people at the daycare, one of which is her sister Crystal. Crystal worked at that daycare as well. And so they administered CPR, emergency services were called, and Benjamin was transported to a hospital where he was then pronounced dead. People from the daycare were taken in for questioning. They separated people, even brought them to different police departments, in different towns. Melissa was brought in and questioned for hours. You can find her interrogation on YouTube. And Kaluzinski is spelled Kalusinski. So since I'm not on my laptop with my dual screens, I can't just find it and put the link here. So Christopher, one of the moderators, maybe he'll be able to do it for you, or you're all very capable of doing it yourselves. But you can watch the interrogation. Of course, it is not it in its entirety because it has been edited, of course. But she was still in there. Don't remember how many hours, because again, I'm really bad at numbers. But she was in there for hours upon hours. She said from the get-go, she didn't do anything, and they're doing to her what they're trained to do, everything from that read technique, that she's in the small room, you don't have a clear path to the door, and just the way they talked to her and such, that Melissa was no match for these two gentlemen from the Lake County Major Crimes Task Force. George Falenko, who was running lead on that, is somebody who, thank you Christopher for posting the link. George Falenko is involved in many questionable cases in Lake County, Illinois, including the Marnie Yang case, which I'm sure you've, or not sure because some of you are new, that you may have heard me talk about before. George Falenko was involved in getting that false confession as well. And Melissa had asked for an attorney. Nothing happened, was denied, not even a consideration for Melissa. At one point, Melissa was on the phone with her father, and I believe it was Falenko, is in the background screaming and calling Melissa a bitch and saying that she killed this boy. What they tricked her into doing is, you will see if you watch that interrogation how over the hours the story Melissa is telling changes. And if you're somebody who has watched Making a Murderer or has followed the Stephen Avery and Brendan Dassey cases at all, you will see a strong similarity to what was done to Brendan Dassey. Melissa wanted to go home. She was 22 years old. She wanted to go home and be with her parents and her puppy Oreo. And she even says that in the interrogation video. She wants to go home and see her parents and her dog. And so as the story changes, and I can't remember how many times also Melissa said she didn't do this. Melissa's Aunt Helen and her father Paul run a Facebook page. There's two different ones for her, but there's the official Melissa Kaluzinski Facebook page. And I could never remember the names because there's always these long names. But I believe Helen has it somewhere on that page too, exactly how many times Melissa had said that she was innocent and didn't do anything. But as they get her to slowly change the story after hours and, not feeding her and, not going to the bathroom and no sleep, her story changes to where, oh, well, if it was just an accident, maybe you just dropped him, it was an accident. And so Melissa's story begins to change into, it was an accident and she dropped Ben. Then they want her to demonstrate how she dropped Ben, and they give her a doll to use. And so Melissa kind of sets the doll down, but they really want her to throw that kid down. So the way they have Melissa then demonstrate how she allegedly dropped Ben, if you look at the medical evidence, even the phony evidence that they provided, it doesn't match up with how the kid would have hit the floor. So Melissa is told to say, it was an accident and she'll go home. So Melissa does this false confession and she's been incarcerated ever since. The medical evidence. So what was given to her team was this kind of blacked out x-ray of the poor boy. And that's something you can Google as well, where there are pictures that you can see what the state tried to use or did use, and now what was uncovered years later of what the autopsy photo, the x-ray, actually looked like. And just like in the Stephen Avery case, it's this crap of the way they gave this x-ray to Melissa's team. You would have to have some special software to be able to open it properly. And due diligence was not done on that, so I guess you could say ineffective assistance of counsel for on that for Melissa. But what alleged medical experts claimed is that there was a crack in Ben's skull that they could feel with their fingers, and that they saw blood. And when you see the original, not the original, the x-ray that was used to prosecute Melissa, you can't see anything. You can't tell anything. But now when you see the actual x-ray, the boy's skull looks like a giant light bulb. And there is no crack. There's no fracture in that boy's skull. So therefore, people are lying here. And also, the area that they're claiming that Melissa would have, his head would have hit the floor, is not how, not where the damaged area would have been on the child. Also, this child was a known headbanger, that he would whip his head down and hit the floor. Now, there was also an instance, I can't remember how long prior, because again, numbers. It's a serious thing with me that my brain just can't remember or retain numbers. But this was before Melissa was even working at this daycare. She worked for this company, but she was at a different location and had just transferred to this one. But this boy had come to school, to the daycare, with a bump on his head and was kind of lethargic. And the daycare has to protect itself, and they said, no, he can't be in here without a doctor's note, you know, because they don't want it used on them later, obviously, that this kid got this bump on his head while in their care. So the kid went to a doctor and came back and, you know, claiming there was nothing wrong with the kid, and now there's a paper trail that there was this prior instance. So think about that, and then look at that x-ray where the kid's head is a light bulb. You don't have to be a medical professional to be able to go, that kid's brain was swelling. And Melissa accidentally dropping him or throwing him to the ground, if he's crying and, oh, just be quiet, and throws him down, which absolutely she did not do. But if Melissa or anybody had done either of those things, he's not going to instantly have this big swollen brain that then kills him. This is a prior accident, injury, whatever you want to call it, that also occurred. Don't know if when he had that bump on his head, if that's what it's from. Don't know, but can't say it's not. But that occurred prior to Melissa even being there. Now, there is evidence in this case that is not public, and I can't say, but there is a lot more to that prior injury than anybody knows. So Melissa Kaluzinski is now represented, and has been for prior to Making a Murderer come out. She is represented by Kathleen Zellner, who is Stephen Avery's now attorney. Kathleen Zellner is the best wrongful conviction attorney you can get. And she only takes cases that she knows a person is innocent. And this woman does her homework and gets all the best experts. She recreates everything to see if she can get the state's narrative to fit the science and the evidence. Kathleen Zellner knows that Melissa Kaluzinski is 100% innocent. But the problem with our system in the United States is it is so easy to prosecute somebody, and it is so hard to overturn that conviction, and even harder if they have confessed. It can be done. She has done it, and it has been done multiple times, but Kathleen Zellner says it takes on average 15 years from when she takes the case to overturn a wrongful conviction. Now, I don't know what year she took the case, but it's been 13 years that Melissa's been incarcerated. So, and then you've got where in Melissa's case, it is waiting for the court to respond on a filing that Kathleen did, 2 years ago now? Judges don't have a time limit and can take as long as they want. So these people sit in prison and they're innocent. There really should be something that protects the rights of inmates. Inmates should still have rights. I'm sorry, because I don't care if you were proven guilty by a jury or a judge. We know that that's not always factual of what's been presented in court. It's just not. And so those people should still have rights. They are still people. And they shouldn't have to sit in prison all these years waiting to get justice. And it's not just for the wrongfully accused. It's the family as well as the victim, of the victim. There's no justice for Benjamin Kingham's family, even though they sued the daycare, and what did they get? Like $2 million? And the daycare had to close. But you don't truly know what happened to Ben. And Melissa has been in prison all these years. She's lost both of her grandparents, her grandmas, while she's been in prison. Her dad's health goes up and down. Her mom is like her best friend. And there she sits. So Melissa, I visit Melissa pretty regularly. That's my first ever visit with Melissa, because this was my first visit with Stephen Avery. So when I visited him, I was wearing my Free Melissa shirt. So when I went to go visit Melissa, I wore an Justice Avery wear shirt. I get entertained by that. There's another visit with Melissa. And there's another visit with her. Melissa is going to try to call me. She should be, if she's able to call me, she'll be calling in about 10 minutes. And I'll put her on speakerphone, which is another reason I'm pissed off that I have to use my iPad and not this stuff, that you'd be able to hear my phone a lot better through my microphone. So I just want you to be able to hear her voice, and I'm going to wish her a happy birthday. I'm probably going to sing to her. So those of you on here, whether you're live right now or you're going to listen, you watch this later, you're going to hear my horrible voice. And phone calls from the prison last 20 minutes. So you'll probably, if you've got questions, you can't ask her any questions about her case. But if you have any questions for her and you want to type it in when she calls, if she calls, because also I talked to her Saturday and she said, that she's going to try to call. And just because she's telling me she's going to call at 10:30 doesn't mean, it's prison. You don't, just because you want the phone at such and such a time, doesn't mean something's not going to happen that you won't be able to use the phone. So, because her prison has been put on lockdown several times due to COVID, which is another thing that annoys the crap out of me, that what keeps happening at the prison is the people who work at the prison who do not get vaccinated or don't wear their masks or whatever, who get to come and go from the prison. Obviously, inmates aren't going anywhere. So the people coming and going from the prison keep getting COVID, and then that forces the inmates to have to go on lockdown, where they get to lose all their privileges because people aren't going to pay attention to we're in a pandemic. And you can't just think about yourself. You need to think about others as well. So you need to get vaccinated and you need to still wear a mask. And just because you're vaccinated doesn't mean you won't get a breakthrough case of COVID. Just means you won't die. Sorry to get on my COVID soapbox here, but here I am. Now I got my booster, so I have 3 COVID shots. And I was at an outdoor event yesterday with a crowd of people, and I was wearing double masks because it's not just me. You need to protect other people who can't be vaccinated or, hello, Debbie, or who are compromised, and remember too, think of the children. I'm sorry, think of the children, that just now they're going to have, some kids are going to be able to get the shots. That just started. So there's so many kids that are not vaccinated who, believe it or not, children die from COVID. So, okay, let's get off my little COVID rant right there. But it really bothers me that Melissa's rights are so taken away already, and then due to those mask holes that they get put on lockdown, and then the bare minimum that she has gets taken away, that she can't make phone calls to her parents. She can't leave her room. Hello, Stephanie. The food they're given is worse because when a prison goes on lockdown, that the inmates have to stay in their rooms. The inmates are the ones that make the food, serve the food, do all that stuff. And now if they're on lockdown and have to stay in their rooms, now prison workers have to do it, and they don't want to, and they don't give the inmates the food they should have, and even that isn't great. The first visit that I did with Melissa in July, when visits resumed after COVID, the power had been out at the prison, so they weren't able to go to chow. And so while we were in the visitors room, they brought her tray of food there. So at least they were still feeding them. But also maybe was it just the ones in the visitors room getting food because they knew outside people were there and seeing? So I was able to see what they were feeding her. And I'm obviously not going to say something to her because that's what she's eating. And Melissa is always the sweetest thing and wanting to share her food with me. So she's like, do you want some of this? Want some of it? And it's like, oh my God, it looked all disgusting. No, I don't want it. But, I had to go, no, I'm okay. Because that was another thing. Since the power was out, none of the vending machines would work. So you can't then, because that's one of the great things on a visitation is they've got a wall of vending machines that we're able to buy them food. Still, a lot of it looks disgusting, but but they love it, and because it's something different than what they get. So now it's the first visit since COVID, and you can't give them buy them some different food. And then the next visit I did with her, the vending machines were working, but there's hardly anything in there. They're not fully stocked. And since they're not feeding them very well too, when I asked Melissa what she wanted, she's like, I want a burger. And then it was very hard to find a burger in the vending machine, but there were two different ones. So I'm like, all right, there's a cheeseburger and there's a bacon cheeseburger, because the inmate is not allowed to go to the vending machines. They have to stay seated at the table unless they're using the bathroom. So I have to go back and forth or yell across the room on what there is. And she's like, I want the biggest patty you can find because they're not giving us any protein. And so then I'm spinning the thing. Sup, Tamara? I'm spinning the little carousel thing, looking at all these bagged burgers to try and see if one patty is bigger than the rest, to make sure I get her that so she can get some protein. I mean, I don't know if that's real meat or what it is that's in that burger. But, yeah. So, and Melissa they were just on lockdown again, like 2 weeks ago. But she just told me last week they're back off lockdown. So that means visitations can resume again and she can use the phone. And the way you can visit is you have to sign up online on their website. Not you, because you have to be on her list to be able to. Just the general you. You have to sign up 7 days in advance. And then they also ask you a bazillion questions that you have to fill out in there. And they have the visitations divided where, like, the first two, and they're 3-hour windows. So you can visit for 3 hours. So the first two are for people who are vaccinated, and then the second two, or however many different shifts there are for non-vaccinated people. And I don't know if that's going to change, because I know here in Illinois, they've been trying to do something to mandate vaccinations at the prisons. Melissa is vaccinated, but it isn't mandatory. So there is still inmates that are not vaccinated at Melissa's prison anyway. But Melissa is fully vaccinated. And when I go to a fully vaccinated visitation, when I walk into the visitor's house, you can't wear a mask when you walk in because you have to use one of their masks. And then I have to wear that mask as you walk through the grounds of the prison until you get to the visitor's room. And then the visitor's room has, it's these little circle tables and then chairs on either side. The inmate always has to sit on the side where they're facing the desk where the officers are at, that they're raised up a little bit. But they have to have eye contact with them. And there's plexiglass that is just, I think it's drilled into the table too, I'm not sure, but it's sitting on the table. But since we're the vaccinated visit, we can then take the mask off and I can move my chair over to the side so Melissa and I aren't trying to speak through the glass, that we can see each other and see each other's mouths as we talk, which is always good for me because I am deaf in my left ear and I'm not the best mouth reader either, but I still, it's easier for me to understand people if I can see their mouths when they're talking. And, you know, so that first visit I had with Melissa, that we had to be separated by the glass and have the masks on. And Melissa doesn't have a loud voice. It's hard for me to hear her. And you've got the noise of the other people that are there as well. I talk loud naturally. I'm sure it's also because of my deafness in one ear and because I'm just a loud, obnoxious person. But I don't know when I'm going to visit her next. I just went like 2 weeks ago, and I'm not sure what the rules are, because you're only allowed X amount of visits per 30 days, blah, blah, blah. I don't know, and I never want to interfere or take screw something up for her parents. Her parents are the only other people who visit her besides me, and her parents go together. So she's only getting a loud person. This Debbie has known me since junior high, so she knows I'm loud. So it's only 2 visits that she gets, but still, I don't ever want to set up a visit that would do anything that could interfere with the visit with her parents. Now, her parents only visit typically on the weekends because her mom works and works a lot. So they usually go on Saturdays. So I go on weekdays because I want to make sure I'm never doing a weekend visit, because sometimes there's rules on how many weekend visits you can get and blah, blah, blah. So it's like, I don't have a real job, so I can go on the weekend. So, so I usually go on like a Tuesday or a Wednesday, but I'll always email with Melissa and find out from her, because she does work at the prison. The job she has now, and this shows you what bond she really has with her parents. And so her dad is like the varmint guy. That's what I say, the varmint guy. You know, so if people have, you know, a raccoon that's in your house, snake, whatever, you can call Paul and he's going to come and remove that from your home. And even the last time Paul went to visit Melissa, Melissa's prison is Southern Illinois, and her prison is surrounded by farmland, and there's some preserve right there, you know, so there's a lot of wildlife right in the area. Like when I've done visits and I leave at dusk, there's deer all over right across the street. And here's Melissa calling right
Melissa
now.
Prison.
I have to press 1 to accept the call. Hello, happy birthday. I don't have you on speaker yet, so don't worry about it. But I am live. So they're hearing my side of it, but they're not hearing you right now. But you do have to suffer this right now. You ready? Ready? Here we go. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Melissa. Happy birthday to you. I had to sing to you. You know I had to sing to you. Oh, really? Yeah, I get it. So, do you want me to put you on speaker? You wouldn't hear anybody else talking. They would be just if they ask me a question, I'd repeat it to you, but it would just be the conversation you and I have. They would be able to hear you, and you'll be able to say something to them if you would like. Okay, hold on. Let me hit speaker on my phone. Oh, let me hide that. And audio and speaker. And is it turned all the way up? It is turned all the way up. Okay. Hopefully people will be able to hear you.
Yeah, hopefully. Well, it's been done before, right?
Yeah, we did it before. Me and your dad did it before. Okay, so first thing I want to say to you, did you watch Walking Dead last night?
I did, and it's getting so good. I'm sad there's one more episode.
I know. Oh my God. It was so good. And that conversation between Maggie and Negan.
Vegan, yeah.
Oh my.
Oh my God, those were crazy.
Yeah.
Being bluntly honest, though.
Right. Because he's right, because look at where he's at now. And if he had just killed them all, he wouldn't have been that way and he wouldn't have lost his people.
Exactly. He still would have had his own little community and his own little, people and everything else. And then now they're down to nothing.
Right. Mm-hmm. And him training her to be a whisperer. Oh my God.
I know. Yes. At least they agreed to something together. But yeah, that was weird. He taught her how to be a whisperer.
And I mean, that's quite the herd that they put together too.
Yeah, that's crazy. And the Reapers, they don't even have a really big community. They have what, at least a dozen now?
Right.
If not less.
Yeah.
So.
And they don't have any walls either, right? They don't really have any real protection.
No, they just have those little steel plate walls. That's about it, I think.
Ooh, we've got somebody commenting right now saying, I didn't watch the latest episode yet. Well, too bad, Debbie. You're getting spoilers right now.